Basically, the museum is a huge heritage park of Armenian artifacts that have been collected, that people have brought with them, or people have collected and have donated to the museum. It shows Armenian presence in this civilization from the beginning of history until today. It tells the story, the history of the Armenian genocide, with some artifacts that have directly survived the genocide, which are in the museum. We get not a very large number of visitors in this museum, but we get enough for them to see who are the Armenians and what they have contributed to the world civilization. And also they will unfortunately see the sad story of the Armenian genocide.
My parents, both of them, who lived in that particular village called Tomarza, they were displaced. They went through various parts of Turkey into Syria, and from Syria into what is known as the Syrian desert, Deir Zor. They thought they were escaping into freedom by going through Izmir in 1922 so that they can get on board and go to Greece. But as it turned out, Izmir became the final bastion for the Turks to have their final blow on anyone who happened to be there. The Armenians were trying to escape. They were routed into churches where they were hiding and set on flames, and many of them who were able to get on out of all that into the waiting ships to take them to safety. Half of them were burnt to death, and it was just the most miserable thing one can hear from parents and grandparents. And these are the kinds of things that were the beginnings of our childhood, these memories that unfortunately somehow you can't forget, and in order to forgive there has to be acceptance, and unfortunately Turkey to this day denies. And that is the burning, sad story that most Armenians carry with them.
My great aunt was killed when she was 18 years old, resisting rape by the Turkish soldiers. And it's unbelievable that any nation can do such a cruel act on other people.
My great-grandfather on my father's side owned an Oriental rug shop, and every time the Turkish troops would come around and gather Armenians to go on the death marches through the deserts, my great-grandfather would give each Turkish soldier a rug, and that's how they would let his family members stay. And they would keep giving them rugs every time they would come around, and eventually there was only one rug left, which we now have in my current house.
The most important part today, because none of us really is from that generation anymore, is the sad story of the denial of the Armenian genocide by the Turkish government, and unfortunately the non-recognition of the Armenian genocide by many Western countries, including the United States.
Unfortunately, the United States as a country does not recognize the Armenian genocide as a genocide, and in fact, President Barack Obama in his campaign promised that he would put more efforts towards getting the Armenian Genocide recognized, but the 2 times that he's publicly mentioned the genocide, he hasn't actually used the word genocide to describe it. It's a difficult situation because the United States has alliances with Turkey in NATO, and it's become a controversial topic because he has pressures from both sides, the Armenians and his allies with Turkey, so it's causing problems.
Most countries who have committed genocide or Holocaust, they claim to be, or they are civilized, whether it was Germany during the Holocaust. Germany was known as one of the most civilized countries in Europe, yet they were able to commit this act, and it was, led by Hitler, but it was done by a country who followed him. The Turkish people were not as civilized as Germans were, but again, there was a group of European Turkish people who were very civilized, and those are the ones who organized actually the genocide, and they committed that act on people who just wanted to live peacefully.
I believe as young Armenians, especially involved in the Armenian Church, we need to keep our legacy and our culture, our history alive. Our ancestors did so much for us 90 years ago so we could have the freedoms we have today and have the church we have today. So I believe it's our obligation to continue the faith, the culture, the history, and always never forget the genocide.